Hello, my name is Rob Evans, and I'm the Manager of Organizational Assessments and K-12 Services for Margolis-Healy and the School Security Liaison Officer for Vermont's Agency of Education and Department of Public Safety. This presentation is the result of a collaboration between Chief Tony Fakos from the Montpelier Police Department, Sheriff Ray Allen from the Grand Isle Sheriff's Department, and Sergeant Corey Lozier from the Vermont State Police, who have all brought their significant years of experience and training to develop this current trends in law enforcement's response to an active shooter training program. Sergeant Lozier is currently a patrol commander at the St. Albans Barracks and has been a member of the State Police Tactical Services Unit for 8 years. He is an active shooter instructor, an ALICE instructor, and has instructed the law enforcement response to an active shooter to hundreds of local, county, state, and federal law enforcement officers across Vermont. Chief Tony Fakos has over 29 years of law enforcement experience. He is an active member of the Vermont School Crisis Planning Team. He has also presented internationally on topics centered on school safety, incident command, and school resource officer programs. He formerly served as a hostage and crisis negotiator for the Montpelier Police Department, and his department has maintained a robust training standard with a focus on school violence prevention, response, and incident command. Sheriff Ray Allen has served with the Grand Isle County Sheriff's Department for the past 24 years. His agency was one of the first in the state to receive active shooter training from the State Police Tactical Services Unit when the program began. His agency works with all the schools in the county and takes an active role in school safety programs and trainings. On a regular basis, his agency takes part in lockdown trainings with the schools. The Grand Isle Sheriff's Department prides themselves on having an excellent working relationship with the schools and supervisory union in their county. An active shooter is defined by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. It is important to note that while these types of incidents have been gripping our national news headlines, schools across the country are still some of the safest places for our children to be. While we must continue to plan and prepare for these high-impact, low-probability events, we strongly encourage school crisis planning teams to continue with their all-hazards approach to crisis response planning and preparation. This training is designed to familiarize you with some of the actions that will be taken by law enforcement when responding to an active shooter, and to give you some recommendations that will help keep you safe when coming in contact with law enforcement during these types of incidents. Columbine High School. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold drove onto the campus armed with 4 guns, several knives, and numerous improvised explosive devices, and forever changed the way law enforcement responds to an active shooter. 15 people were killed as a result of this attack, and 23 students and faculty members were seriously wounded. Aurora, Colorado. 25-year-old James Holmes, dressed in tactical clothing, set off tear gas grenades in a movie theater in a methodical, well-planned attack that resulted in 12 deaths and 70 wounded. Virginia Tech. 32 people were killed on campus before the shooter took his own life. During this incident, by utilizing certain techniques, the killer was able to slow down the law enforcement response, adding to the time he was able to conduct his murderous rampage. Newtown, Connecticut. 20-year-old Adam Lanza killed his mother and then traveled to Sandy Hook Elementary, where he shot and killed 20 children and 6 staff members. While Essex elementary school teachers and administrators were preparing for the new school year, Christopher Williams entered the school armed with a handgun, looking for his girlfriend who was a teacher at the school. Prior to entering the school, Williams had already shot and killed his girlfriend's mother, and upon entering the school, Williams shot and killed 1 teacher and shot and severely injured another before fleeing the scene. No longer can law enforcement wait until additional resources and SWAT teams arrive to confront these killers. Aggressive response actions must be taken to minimize the damage and loss of life that all too often results during an active shooter situation. Due to the fact that almost all of these active shooter incidents are over within minutes, immediate law enforcement action must be taken to effectively neutralize the threat. Law enforcement officers must now be prepared to take decisive life-saving action either on their own or as soon as multiple officers arrive on the scene to assist. Over the past 10 years, the Vermont State Police Tactical Services Unit has trained hundreds of local, county, state, and federal law enforcement officers in active shooter response. This collaborative training approach has brought together law enforcement officers from across the state to learn new tactical approaches in responding to an active shooter, and has enabled officers in specific geographic locations to train and exercise together. Many of your schools have opened up their doors to these training scenarios, and many teachers and school administrators have participated in these training opportunities. If an active shooter incident were to take place at your school, you should immediately follow your school's emergency response procedures. Law enforcement, fire department, and emergency medical service personnel will be called to respond, and the incident command system will quickly be established. The first law enforcement officers to arrive will quickly gather information about the location of the shooter, will develop a hasty action plan, and will then enter your building with the intent of eliminating the threat at your school. Upon entering your school, officers will move quickly and may need to travel past those persons in need of immediate assistance in an effort to make the scene safe and to facilitate the rapid deployment of follow-on emergency response resources. Officers may be equipped with certain types of tactical gear and specialized weapons that may make them look quite differently from the way you see them during their normal patrol functions. Once the scene has been made safe, officers may begin a more methodical search of your school to locate those in need of assistance and to begin the process of evacuating your school. Anyone in need of emergency medical services may be evacuated, or medical services may be brought inside your school to begin the triage process if there are multiple persons in need of life-saving action. While the building is being searched for potential victims, you may be approached by police officers. It will be important for you to listen to their instructions carefully while keeping your hands where officers can clearly see them. Officers may ask you to keep your hands above your head or hold hands with those that are in your classroom as they begin to assist you with the evacuation process. As the evacuation process begins, teachers and school administrators may be asked to assist emergency responders with obtaining an accurate count of all those that were located inside your school at the time of the incident. Witness interviews may be conducted, coordinated press notifications may need to be developed, and first responders may ask for your assistance in activating your family reunification plan. While this situation will be very stressful for all involved, it will be important for you to remain calm and to work closely with your emergency first response partners. Once the scene is declared safe, the evacuation process is completed, and all wounded have been medically treated and transported to the hospital, school administrators should be prepared to continue to work with local first responders as many follow-on tasks will need to be completed. While Vermont's emergency first response community has been working hard to plan and prepare for these types of incidents, there is plenty of work you can do to prevent these tragedies from ever happening at your school. A positive school climate where students, faculty, staff, and parents are actively engaged in their school community can reduce the chances of these violent encounters. When students feel comfortable talking to a trusted friend or staff member about potentially violent situations, these types of incidents can be stopped before they happen. Over the past several years, there has been a tremendous amount of discussion about the different response actions that can be taken if confronted by an active shooter. Run, hide, fight, and Alice are just a few of the response methods that are being discussed that go beyond their traditional school lockdown. It is important to note that when considering these different options, a school could potentially move away from a unified school response to a more flexible response that allows teachers, administrators, and even students to make individual life-saving decisions. Every school should collaborate with its local first response community and ensure all agencies are informed of any changes in your emergency response procedures. And in review, an active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. If your school is involved in an active shooter situation, remember to follow your school's emergency response procedures, listen to all commands from responding law enforcement officers, and be prepared to possibly assist first responders with the evacuation of your school. And remember, a positive school climate can lessen the chances of these types of violent encounters from ever happening at your school. Thanks for participating in this training, and please feel free to contact any of us by phone or email if you have any questions.